On today's episode, I'm so excited to welcome Jeanine Hauck for a second time to the podcast. If you go back to episode 7, you can hear our first conversation. I have invited Jeanine to co-host this entire month with me as we discuss being a mom and an entrepreneur with 4 other amazing women. Jeanine is the perfect person to co-host since she is a coach, entrepreneur, wife, and mom to 3 little ones 6 and under. She's made it her goal to help ambitious women discover and create a life on purpose. By practicing this herself, she has created opportunities to collaborate with women around the world. She does this through her gifts as an intuitive channel and as an empowerment coach. She knows you are not meant to live an average life, but to turn the average into extraordinary. Check out her Facebook group, Her Extraordinary Life, to join her community. When Jeanine shares how she always wanted to be a mom, but once she got there, she felt that there was something missing, I fully related. We discussed the guilt brought on by ourselves and society when it comes to being moms and also entrepreneurs. We also discuss her journey and the twists and turns she's experienced along the way. Here's our conversation. I would like to welcome back to the podcast my good friend, Jeanine Hauck. I am so excited to have you here for the month of August with us, Jeanine.
Thanks, Don. I'm really excited. We have a lot of exciting things coming up this month.
We do. So I have Jeanine sharing the hosting with me. We're going to co-host together for the entire month of August because we're specifically talking about the idea of being mompreneurs, which we both are. And we're both in different stages, which we've got amazing guests.
We have so many amazing guests, and it's amazing that how many times can I use amazing here? Jeez, everybody has kids of different ages, different stages, different abilities. And so it really speaks to the full experience of what motherhood is because there are so many commonalities, but there's also a lot of differences that sometimes get swashed over when the title mom is put on it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have not met Jeanine before, she was on episode 7 of this podcast. So you can go back and take a look at her or take a listen to her episode. It is a way for you to get to know her better. But we're going to talk a little bit about her journey as an entrepreneur today, because I think it's interesting being as you're still a new-ish, I would say, a new-ish mom, a new-ish entrepreneur, which is a different part of the journey than mine. And you've got 3 kids that are 6 and under, am I right? Or under 6?
Yeah, she just turned 6, so 6 and under.
Yeah, so it's like you're in the craziness of all of it. And one thing I do want to chat about before we get going is the idea of how we met and the importance for me, for sure, of you in my life, in my business, and as a fellow mom that's trying to build a business. So I think that part is also important for me. I'd love for us to chat about that a little bit.
Yeah, me too. I'm so curious, Dawn. How old were your kids when you started your entrepreneurship journey?
So when I started originally, I would say they were 3 and 1 because I only had 2. So 3 and 1 when I first started. Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, really, I started after my daughter was born, but it got more real after the second one is born. So kind of in the stages that you were in, right? Is that similar to the ages yours were?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so funny thinking back. I think I've always kind of been on the entrepreneurship journey because to come out of high school, I was certified actually as a hairdresser. And so I worked for a salon for a couple years, but I ended up starting a salon just in my house for quite a few years and making a living doing it that way. So I kind of was an entrepreneur before I even came into the online space. Yeah, I think it was very similar. We moved 5 days after I had my second one, and then, yeah, she was about 9 months old, so I would have had a 9-month-old, almost 3-year-old. So, yeah, pretty much at the exact same time, and it's kind of a crazy time to decide, like, "You know what? I have a little too much time on my hand. Let's start a business. Why not?"
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever said that, right? When they have young children, even if you only have 1 young child, your time is pretty full. You're scrambling, you're trying to learn. There's a massive learning curve with the first one, right? And then a massive learning curve trying to fit in the second one. But then to start a business, what were you thinking?
What were you thinking? But I think that's the piece that's really hard to understand unless you have that part in you, because I honestly think it's just a piece of you. It's just your natural way of being that like there is a sense of fulfillment that you need that's other. That's not necessarily who you are as a mom. Like, even though like I've wanted to be a mom my whole life and I'd hit that stage in my life, but it wasn't everything. There was a sense of guilt that I also wanted more. And but it also wasn't a piece of me that could be stifled. And so I to start my entrepreneurship journey, I didn't know what that was going to look like, how it was going to go. But how I began it was actually teaching moms how to braid their daughter's hair online. And so I knew I was meant to be on the online stage. That was the kind of the bridging of the gap between hairdresser to doing it online so that I could really be at home for my family. It was really the starting piece of intentionally creating what I wanted our future life to look like as a family.
Okay, you brought up so many good points there, but one I want to go back to is the idea of the guilt around being a mom might not be enough. Like, I actually want to do something else. Because I'll tell you, when I went back to school after my first to open my own business. And again, like you, my journey where I'm at now and where I was then are totally different spaces. But I kept hearing from people, "But you're a mom. Like, isn't that enough for you? Or you're a mom. Don't you find that that's keeping you busy?" So I always felt like I had to explain that I had a desire in me to have something else, a different part of me be fulfilled. Does that
Mm.
make sense?
Yeah. And I think the hardest part about it is like at that stage, I didn't fully know what was missing. I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. And there was so much guilt around like, man, this has been my dream. Like, this was the finish line. This was the end goal. This is what I get to celebrate and be so happy and filled up. And I did have that. Like, I love being a mom. My kids are awesome. I'm sure your kids are too, but my kids are awesome. And I truly believe it. But there is also that sense of like, I needed to do more than this. And honestly, like, power to any mom who can be a stay-at-home mom full time, because that was my goal. That was my life dream. And then when I got there, I realized like I wasn't happy. This was not what was going to create a happy me. I was good at it. I could go through the stages and stuff, but there was that fulfillment piece. And that's why I turned and decided when I had no time to make time for that.
Yeah, me too. I totally understand that part and that pull to do something else that filled that bucket, that filled that space. So, since your kids are still young, and since you started even before you had your kids, what what would you say are maybe the biggest surprises in trying to do both and trying to create something and trying to raise something? For the months of July, August, and September, we are focusing on being a woman entrepreneur. I know personally that along my journey, there have been some amazing coaches who have helped me figure out exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted it to look and feel. Sometimes the overwhelm was crazy, and I needed that outside view to help simplify what I needed to focus on and to keep me accountable. My favorite thing about working with a coach is that I get more done in less time. Whether it is learning to manage my time, having step-by-step actions to complete a goal, or having someone to help me overcome limiting beliefs and mindset blocks, the coaches I have worked with have been a huge part of my success. Maybe you're looking for a coach or are curious if it's something you need. Because I believe so highly in helping women on their journey, I want to offer you something special. Each month, from July through September, I'm offering 30-minute strategy calls for free to the first 6 women who book a call with me. Each month, 6 new spots will open, and I hope you will take advantage of this time to get clear on where you are and where you want to go. I love learning about the women in my community, and I'm looking forward to hearing about what you want to create. Book your call by clicking on the link in the show notes, or go to my podcast page on my website, pursueprogress.com/podcast. These 6 spots are first come, first serve, so don't wait. Now, back to the podcast.
You know what? For a long time, I was trying to do both perfectly. And I was trying to do everything and not let a single ball drop. And what was happening was I was like, that year that I was like pushing so hard, trying to do it all, I think I got bronchitis 6 times. And like, that is not natural. And and I didn't take it as a sign. I wasn't slowing down enough to actually hear the sign, to see what was coming at me. And I was like, okay, I just have to put my head down and go harder. Like I got sick, so now I need to go harder to make up for that. And I need to, and I think the biggest change was actually letting go of the expectation, letting go of the have tos. The have tos was a huge one. And then letting it be easy, because it was so funny that I had so much resistance to letting it be easy. I was actually making it harder because by it being hard, it felt like I was doing more and that I don't know, I should get a prize for doing it all. And I don't know, putting everything out there, kind of being a martyr. And I was rewarding myself for being that, but it was coming at the cost of my health, my family's happiness. Like I would snap at the kids. And so I think that was the big thing, is letting it be easy. And it was so funny how much resistance I had to that, that I was making being easy hard.
Yeah, I think that's something I still struggle with, and I can find, you know, again, feeling like, "Oh, I gotta make up for something. I gotta make up for something," and then being like, "Hang on a second, like, you actually chose to not do that, or you chose to take that time. What are you doing?" So, do you still struggle with that?
Yes. But the beautiful thing is I've been doing work on myself, personal growth, personal transformation, mindset work, that when it does come up, because we're human and it's natural and life happens, when it comes up, I'm able to actually look at the facts, because what was happening is I was running for a very long time that that was a fact. But if we look at it, was it actually a fact, or was that just my perception of it? Was that just my story? And so I am so grateful for the personal work that I've done, because it honestly affected my family, my business, like in all, any connections with other people in all areas of my life.
Yeah, this is a big thing. Like when you start to be able to question your beliefs, like, are they actually serving me? Where did this come from? Is
Yeah.
it worth continuing in that belief? Right. And then being able to choose and let go of things that just don't work and changing to a new belief. Not that that's, overnight or easy, but it's great to have the option.
I always think of the one story. And honestly, I think like a priest was trying to be funny and I heard it in church or something like that when I was a kid. And it just always stuck with me. The daughter was making a pot roast and she cut off both ends of the roast and then she cooked it. And her husband looked at it. Well, why do you do that? Like, because my mom's always done it. She's like, okay. And then so she asks her mom, well, why do you do that? Well, my mom's always done it. And she goes to her grandma, like, well, why do you always do it? Well, I didn't have a big enough pan, so I always had to cut off the end so that it would fit in the pan. And so I think it's so important to be questioning our why all the time. Like, why am I doing this? And is it right for me? Because what was right for the people we've learned from isn't necessarily your story anymore.
That is a really good analogy. I love that. That's so funny. When we met, now we met when we were in a program together, both of us looking to expand our business, not really sure what that was gonna look like, I think, for either of us. But when we met, one of the things that I really loved about you was you were just very direct. Have you always been that way? Have you always been somebody who just, kinda sees it how it is and as intuitive of what feels good to you?
No. No, honestly, for so long, I was so worried about like, it's funny, the people pleasing, like what other people think and what would they think of me if I think this way? And what if I very much was suffering from a case of overthinking constantly and all the time. And there was that voice that was constantly needing to edit and like, is this right? Is it not? And so on. And I think one of the biggest changes for me is I was going to a class at that time, I think it was $400. And where I was in my life, that was like massive investment. And I was like, you know what? I invested the money into this class. I am going to ask all the questions. I'm going to sit in the front row. I am going to do what's best for me. And once I started doing that, I didn't want to stop. And so because of that, it's actually helped me so much be able to like ask the questions, be okay with looking stupid if that's the questions I needed to know. One of the most powerful things too that it's actually done is it's allowed me to step into rooms that I don't feel like I'm at that level to be at. And so I get to be regularly in rooms of women, well, people that are just truly incredible and where I want to be in my journey. And so by being direct, by asking the questions, by showing up before I'm ready, it has helped me advance so much faster than I could have ever done on my own.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the thing we often hold ourselves back until we get there, but we actually needed it before. And so your confidence in being willing to be uncomfortable, maybe feel like you're not quite at that level, but I want the answers. That is awesome that you're willing to do that.
Yeah, I think there's a whole piece and like if I look confident, it doesn't always mean that I feel confident, but it's about showing up anyways and just being okay with the results, even if it's not perfect, because you showing up was the win.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to talk a little more about how you've become my accountability partner. And I think it's an interesting part of our relationship. And I think it's an interesting part of our whole business journey, really. Because I know one thing for me as an entrepreneur is you can be doing all the things, you can be working every day at your desk or wherever you work, and never actually have anybody check if you've done what needs to be done. So you could be scrolling Facebook, you could be creating all kinds of social media, and none of that's moving you forward. And nobody ever is going to say to you, hey, like, are you doing the things that you told me you really need to do? Right.
Mhm.
So that was a piece that was missing for me for a long time. And although I'm very, self determined, willing to do my own work, I'll even call myself on some things, it still was a gap. And I often found that other women just didn't have that kind of drive or they weren't building a business. So we didn't have that in a relation. For you, what have you had in your life that way? And is your experience similar or different?
I don't feel like I necessarily had that before because I was kind of just like wandering and discovering and I didn't fully know what I was building. And so I know when we met, we were kind of in the same situation. We knew we wanted to build something. We knew we wanted to be in a place of service, but we were still a little bit in the discovery. And so that's something that was very clear from meeting you from the first day is that you were very driven. Like, I don't feel like you needed anybody else to get the things done. I don't like you were creating results already, right? You were miles ahead in some ways, in some aspects. But the beautiful thing I found from being able to have you as an accountability partner is just that kinship and understanding about what we were building, why we were building it, that bigger purpose. And also just having someone that spoke the language. Like some days are just hard and having someone to hold you high because they know this is where you're going to. This is what's capable for you. And I've just appreciated it so much. And I've had coaches along the way ever since we've met. But to have an accountability partner, that's priceless.
Yeah. And I mean, anyone that's listening, I definitely would say, like, get a coach. Both of us know the value. We've always had coaches. It definitely fast tracks you and it gives you that person to look at the blind spot to see things without the emotion attached. But harder, I think, to find is an accountability partner and somebody that you feel can be there for you, whether you're having a good day or a bad day. And if you're a mom, it's really nice to have a mom that's also an accountability partner because you get that sometimes you need to go have time with the kids and you need to put away the computer or you need to stop. you're getting unbalanced. Not that I believe there's full balance, but things are in imbalance, and sometimes another mom is a good person to know that.
Yeah. And I think honestly, if I had an accountability partner that wasn't a mom, or I think sometimes we'd be in resistance in that, like, well, you don't understand what I'm quite going through. They'd be like, well, just do this, but you don't understand what I'm going through. And as much as we don't want to do that, and that's from a place of like a little bit of victimhood, but by having someone who's in a similar life, whether it's, I mean, we're in very different stages of our lives. By having that, it strips away literally, there's no excuse, like, on, like, "Did you get that done?" Or if something good happens, like, "Dawn, guess what? This happened. I booked a call. I" they're gonna get it. They're gonna be just as excited.
Yeah, it's a really nice place to be when you have somebody that can be there with you. And again, sometimes being in a coaching program, sometimes being in a group, whether it's a Facebook group or somebody's, whether it's a bigger group coaching or whatever, those are good places to look for people who are also on that journey at the same kind of pace as you are if you're looking for something like that.
Yeah. I would love to know from you, how would you go about reaching out to someone? Like, tell our story.
Yeah, because Janine did the work and she reached out. I'm way more, I don't know, introverted, I would say.
Yeah,
But
I'm extroverted, like
yeah, but I think there have been groups that I've been in where there are just people that I like, or I can see like that might be a good fit. And sometimes it's just literally like messaging them. For me, it's easier than talking in person and just saying, "Hey, like I like what you said," or you mentioned this, and that's something I could really relate to. Can we get together over Zoom, or can we meet if you're in person? Obviously, then can we meet in person for some coffee and can you tell me a bit more about your story? But I think that's the thing is to get to know like where they at and who they are to see if it really is a good fit, first of all. So if you're like me and you would prefer to hide behind your phone, then message them. I think that's what I would do. What would you do, Janine?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's just being okay with being the first person to reach out. One thing I've actually noticed, I don't know if you know this, but in our relationship, when we're voxering, it's sometimes we haven't chatted in a little while. And for a little while, for me and Dawn is like a day or two. Like that's bizarre. If I feel like there's something missing, like I'd like more support in this area, I like to flip the script and be like, maybe they would really appreciate that. Maybe that's something they would also like too. So if there's a day where I'm like, man, like I feel like I haven't celebrated in a while. Like I really want to do that. I'm like, you know what? I'll Voxer Dawn because we're always on the Voxer, and it's like, what are you celebrating today? What are you happy for today? It's not always about like, what are you doing? What are you doing next? Have you done it? It's celebrating all of the stages and all of the milestones.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun to be able to actually celebrate because that's something that both of us, I think before we're not that good at recognizing what we have accomplished. We're just on to the next task. So it's nice to have somebody help call that out and slow you down so that you have those moments.
Yeah, because otherwise, and I know we were both guilty of it. It's so funny how similar we can be sometimes. But we just kept, okay, like moving the goalpost. Like, I'll be celebrate successful, happy when. And then we'd hit that and it's like, but I'm not here yet. And so, like, that was so valuable taking it to the present and every day checking in or every day just being mindful of and taking that moment to celebrate. And whether that celebration is actually going out and doing something or just taking the time, like, hey, Dawn, this happened and I'm so excited. And just to feel that energy reciprocated.
Yeah. So for this whole month, we're talking to other women who are moms who are building businesses. Some of them have really struggled. Some of them share, some of that struggle quite personally. Some of them share where they're at now. Some of them share the tools and the tips and the tricks that have really helped them. Some of them share like looking back on things, what they might have done differently. Almost all of them, I think, share things that they're still struggling with or things that they're still working through because it's never an end. Like we're all perfect and don't need any more and more growth. And lots shared like their growth stories. But Janine, what I want to ask you today is if you could pick an area in your life right now, it could be your business, personal, whatever it is. if you could pick an area that you feel like you are in a growth movement, what would that be right now? What's the thing that you're working through?
Mm. I feel like it's being reflected most in my business, but I honestly believe as you grow personally, you grow professionally. So right now, I am personally growing on my confidence, and professionally, that's coming out at getting more visible, speaking my message, being able to give people the tools to have that aha, that light up, that this is what I'm creating, or I feel seen. This is the path that I'm going down, and being able to smooth that for them. And I think that piece only starts when I have the confidence to get visible so they know that I can be there to support them. I can be there to help them hit that milestone, bust through those blocks. So I get to do it first on myself.
And when you're going through this journey, how do you find your personal growth influences or affects your kids?
Oh, my kids are such unique individuals. And I think a lot of it does have to do because of the growth that I've done personally. I don't know. I witness it every day because I'm working in the business. They get to be more independent. Like my 1 year old, he was helping me set the table today. He's almost 2, but and you could tell like he lit up. He got excited getting to whenever I like hold out the spoons to and then he like grabbed the spoons and set the table. Or like my kids understand boundaries better, where before, when I had unlimited time with them, they would just want me to do all the things. And at that point, there was no reason for me not to in my head. There was no reason for me not to because, like, well, I had the time. Let me do all this for you. And so it's given them so many skills that way, as well as how they regulate their emotions has been a big thing. Observing other people's needs. There's just been so many things, and I'm so proud of them. But I know that wouldn't have been, and I've actually noticed those changes in my husband as well, which is incredible. And I know if I wouldn't have been the first person to just start taking those steps and start looking inside, seeing the things that I get to let go of, looking at what's true for me, I think my family life would have been very different. It might have been at the same stage, but there wouldn't have been the same level of peace and happiness.
Oh, I love hearing that. I think this part is really interesting from everybody that we're going to talk to this month, how it's affecting their kids. And one thing I want to ask you about, because I know for everybody we talk to, myself included, there is and can still be mom guilt around the idea. Why am
Mm.
I also doing this? Why am I also doing that? That I'm spending time on my business and that time could be spent with my kids and it's not. So, as a mom, I can beat myself up over that, or I can feel like what I'm doing is important, serves a purpose. How are you with all of that?
At one point, I was not okay with all of that. I'm really proud that where I am today, I feel like that's an area I'm really thriving. Like I've seen now the benefits before I took the chance, before I had any proof. Now I've seen the benefits. Like my kids are thriving. I'm thriving because of this. Like our household is happier. And so that's really been helping. And I think I've let go of a lot of that. Sometimes it does come up. Sometimes, you know what, the funny thing for me is whenever I have to change my childcare schedule and suddenly old stories come up like, oh, I couldn't answer for that much time, or I can only have this much time because then I'm taking away from the kids. And so the stories do come up again. But now, like I said earlier, now I'm equipped where I'm like, sometimes I give myself a day or two to just like relax the nervous system and then look at what's true. Or some days I can just cut right through and be like, okay, that's how I felt last time. And I remembered this. And that actually wasn't a valid feeling, or it's all valid, but that wasn't actually the true feeling. And so to be able to look at that again and look at that from the eyes of proof now has made it so much easier.
I asked you this the last time you were on the podcast, but I'm going to ask again because it might have changed or maybe not. But of the three P's, people pleasing, perfectionism, and procrastination, where do you tend to go to?
It's that perfectionism. And I'm certain that's what I said last time as well. And I know I've talked about people pleasing, like on this episode, and that's very true too, but it's the perfectionism. And to be honest, it all lives in my mind. And whether it's true or not, it's all in my mind. Where previously I said like I was an overthinker. Now I've switched to I have an active mind because it's working for me now. But sometimes I realize I'm like, oh wow, like these thoughts are constant and going and going. And I realize that's when I've like pushed too far without having that balance, without having that self-care. Honestly, laying on the grass is self-care, like something to slow it down, something to level out the balances for me. And so that's been a huge change. Like I'm still a perfectionist, but I've been able to let go of so many things and it's much more in a healthy way now.
Yeah. I love that we get to give away something to everybody that's listening. Janine is going to give us the Unstoppable Bundle, which is huge, huge, huge. This will be in the show notes. Make sure you get it. But Janine, tell us a bit about it.
So it is huge, but very easy. So I want to like, if you're worried about not having time, it is very easy and it's something that you get to implement daily. And it's really focused towards moms, which I'm really excited. So I'll give you like a bit of a gist. There's 5 things in it. There's one, it's the brain dump worksheet. So you get to quiet your mind. I have a chore list so you can get your kids helping out at your household without it being that wheel of thoughts like, oh, I got to get them doing this, this, and this. Then they know their expectations as well as you know how you're being supported. There's the abundance and truth practice, which is so important in getting you grounded in everything that you have rather than that not enough energy. I love this one. There's a door hanger for your office so kids know when you are too busy and when to give you that boundary. And then there's the successful Sunday practice, which is so beautiful because it creates a peaceful Sunday that also sets you up for success for the rest of the week. So there's a lot there, but all of it can be implemented easily and can really start making a difference today.
This sounds so perfect for the mom that is also trying to build a business. So thank you for that. Where is the best place for people to connect with you?
Honestly, you can always send me a message at Jeanine Hauck on my Facebook page, but I really love to hang out in my Facebook group, Her Extraordinary Lives. We have a lot of great conversations and connections and inspirations in there, and we'd love to have you join us.
So I'm going to put all of the contact info for Janine in the show notes, and her awesome freebie will be there as well. Janine, is there anything else you'd like to say to those that are listening today?
I think we've covered so much and we've gotten to the root of a lot of things, but just know that you can do it, that you're enough, and you don't need anything else. You have everything that you need within right now today.
Thank you so much, Janine, not just for being here today and being able to chat, but for co hosting with me for this whole month. I am so excited to share all of these conversations with everybody that's listening.
Thank you, Dawn. It's been a complete pleasure.